Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The transfer portal season is upon us. The bullets are flying. High quality names are hitting the portal. And I want to take a deep dive into this Tennessee Volunteers team and talk about some particular positions and players you might see the Tennessee Volunteers go after as that transfer portal opens up. Really excited about this. And I think you'll see Josh Heupel get active in the transfer portal. There are a few spots on this team, and it's tough right now because Tennessee has a lot of guys who could be declaring for the NFL draft or coming back to school to make that decision. But there are some spots on this roster that could use an upgrade, an immediate upgrade, and the transfer portal allows you to do that. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. This is going to be a very exciting next couple of weeks. As many of the roster moves as Tennessee makes. I'm going to try to be talking about it, breaking it down. Appreciate you guys showing all the support you guys have. If you do enjoy content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear from you guys on particular players or positions you would like to see Tennessee go after as the portal opens. Without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start with the offensive side of the ball, probably the disappointing aspect of the Tennessee football season in 2023. And taking a dive into this offense, I get it. Joe Milton was not what Hendon Hooker was the past couple of years for Tennessee. But I think it's lost in the discussion is the wide receivers certainly weren't what you had in 2022 either, especially with Brew McCoy going down with that injury. I mean, Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt were true game breakers, game changers for that Tennessee offense. And I don't think Tennessee had that quality of wide receiver play last year. You take a look at some of the numbers. I mean, this is a Tennessee offense that only averaged 7.8 yards per pass. That was outside of the top 40 in the country. Not something you're used to saying about this Tennessee offense. And yes, Joe Milton in the quarterback play certainly played a role, but I think the pass catcher position wasn't exactly game-breaking either. And this is a position that I think Tennessee should be able to get extremely aggressive in. You take a look at the wide receivers that will be hitting the transfer portal. There's going to be a ton of talent. And this is also one of the destination spots for a wide receiver. You look at this Tennessee offense, you're going to be asked to make plays. You're going to be asked to stretch the field, have the football in space. If you're a playmaker at the wide receiver position, there is no reason you should not be considering taking your talents to Knoxville, getting into some players that I'm keeping an eye on. We got to start with Juice Wells, who just this morning sounds like he'll be entering his name into the transfer portal. Obviously banged up this year. Tennessee fans remember what he was in 2022. Hell, 6 months ago, before the season started, I was saying Juice Wells might be the best wide receiver in the SEC heading into that 2023 season. Obviously, struggles with some injuries, but you talk about a physical wide receiver that is probably one of the more complete wide receivers you see across the country, a true wide receiver one. I think he would step into this Tennessee offense and be that kind of wide receiver one immediately. Juice Wells has to be a high priority on Tennessee's list if he does indeed enter the portal, which it does sound like he will. Next guy I want to talk about, and we're going to stick with the wide receiver position here. Raymond Cottrell, out of the 2023 class, ended up going to Texas A&M. Obviously, Jimbo Fisher gets fired. This is a guy that is extremely talented. You see his rank, the fifth best player in the transfer portal, 6'3", 220 pounds. You take a look at him coming out of high school, was running an 11.2 100-meter dash time. For a guy 6'3", 220 pounds, that is what you want to see. And you want to have a big presence on the boundary that can stretch the field, go up at the catch point. Hey, Raymond Cottrell, to me, is that kind of guy. And again, maybe a lack of that physicality on the outside, especially when Brew McCoy went down. I think Raymond Cottrell could come in and kind of be that Cedric Tillman of the Tennessee offense. Next guy I want to talk about at the tight end position. So sticking with this pass catcher idea, Daquan Wright. And this is a tight end position where you're losing your top two guys, not a ton of experience in this Tennessee tight end room. Daquan Wright's a perfect fit for Tennessee. You look at how Tennessee wants to use their tight ends, splitting them out wide, having them operate in space, and really trying to get your tight end to be a matchup nightmare for opposing defenses, I should say. Right, too big for a defensive back to handle, too fast for a linebacker to handle. And Daquan Wright, I think, kind of exemplifies what Tennessee is looking for. Right, not the biggest tight end, not the best blocking tight end. 6'4", 250 pounds, was at Virginia Tech for 2 years. You take a look at his numbers. I mean, Last year, 28 catches for 366 yards. This was another guy that was running a sub 11.2 coming out of high school in the 100-meter. He was able to put up a lot of numbers in a Virginia Tech offense that did not throw the football very well all year. Imagine what he can be in a Tennessee uniform, in that Tennessee offense where he's going to be asked to play in space and kind of be a matchup nightmare in that Tennessee offense. We all know Josh Heupel is one of the best in the country at scheming up plays and getting the matchups he wants. Daquan Wright, I could see him having a ton of fun matching him up with opposing linebackers or safeties and kind of having that matchup nightmare that Tennessee's looking for with that tight end position. The last guy I want to talk about at the wide receiver position, and this one is a little bit more just for fun because he hasn't entered in the transfer portal yet, but you talk about candidates to hit the transfer portal, you got to go to Barian Brown out of Kentucky. This is a guy that's from the state of Tennessee. That offense just really, it had a good game against Tennessee, but on aggregate, on average that year, Devin Leary really struggling to get the football down the field. I believe he finished with a 58% completion percentage. A guy like Barian Brown, 2 years at Kentucky, one of the most dynamic players in the SEC. You talk about this Tennessee offense and it being predicated in space. Barian Brown's the guy you want to get the football to in space. Coming out of high school, a 10.4 900-meter dash time, and I think he even plays faster than that number on the football field. You talk about a game changer at the wide receiver position. I wouldn't even just call him a wide receiver. I call him an offensive weapon. It's a guy that can take end routes, can take screens, can be in special teams. This guy would be, and again, former Tennessee dude from Nashville, extremely fun to watch what Barian Brown could do in that Tennessee offense. Next guy I want to go to, sticking on the offensive side of the ball before we flip sides, is Trayshawn Ward. And this is a kind of, you're waiting to see what Wright and Small are doing. If both of those guys end up leaving, you probably want just at the very least some depth. You have some young running backs in that room that you feel good about, but you might want to bring in an experienced running back who's had a lot of carries in their time. Trayshawn Ward is that perfect guy, right? 1,800 total yards as a running back rushing, over 6 yards per carry, And you look at where Trayshawn Ward thrives in the most. He thrives in space. Again, going back to Tennessee, like they want to get their athletes in space, having guys miss tackles. I don't know if there's a better running back in the transfer portal right now that fits this Tennessee offense than Trayshawn Ward. He excels when he gets to the second level, making people miss. Again, over 6 yards per carry on his career. I think Trayshawn Ward would make a ton of sense for Tennessee. And this is really kind of pending the fact of what Wright and what Small decide to do with their collegiate careers. Now, going to the defensive side of the football, I think you're looking in the secondary first. And again, kind of sound like a broken record, but waiting for some of these veterans to make their decision, you're going to want to add some depth to this back end because some of those guys are going to be out the door. Jakeen Harris from NC State, part of that 2019 class. So you're getting a 6-year senior at the safety position coming from NC State, who he started 19 games, missed all year this year with the season-ending injury in that first game. You take a look at his numbers, 167 total tackles, 11 pass breakups, 4 interceptions. If you want an experienced player to come and supplement for a young but talented secondary, Jakeen Harris is probably a day one plug-and-play guy, but at the very least is going to be a contributor for this Tennessee defense that in the secondary allowed 66% completion percentage. That was 125th in the country, 7.4 yards per pass. That was 68th in the country. This is a unit that can take some steps, and I really do like what they're doing with that front seven. But in the secondary, you could afford to add some talent and some veteran guys in that back end. And another guy that, again, playing around with some guys that could find themselves in the portal, Torino Pride from Clemson. This dude's a ball player from that 2022 class. So he's going into his third year. Played a lot this year, but kind of getting beat out by some younger freshmen, struggled with some injuries. This guy can play. I saw him play as a true freshman at Clemson. He always had caught my eye. I really like his game. I think he's a really good cornerback. I think he could come in and be kind of an all-SEC caliber cornerback for Tennessee. Not in the transfer portal yet, but you look at the depth that Clemson has in that back end. He might be looking for a spot where he can be that guy on the outside. Tennessee might be that spot where he can maybe thrive. And again, this is more of a projection of a name that might be in the portal, but if he does hit the portal, he's going to have a lot of suitors, and I think Tennessee could be one of them. last one I want to talk about, and again, depending on some of the decisions these defensive linemen make, Marley Cook from Middle Tennessee. This is a guy that has hit the portals, got offers from Ohio State, Miami. You take a look at the numbers the last 2 years, 15 tackles for a loss, 7 sacks his last 2 seasons at Middle Tennessee. Again, it's one of the things that I'm most optimistic about for this Tennessee team is they are getting better in the trenches, especially on the defensive line. Marley Cook would just add another quality body to the rotation. What was a part of the reason Tennessee was so good up front is they had a ton of dudes that they were rotating in and out. Marley Cook would certainly be one of those guys that's rotating for the Tennessee Volunteers, played his college ball at Tennessee, could certainly see Tennessee being a factor in this one as well. That'll do it for some of the names, and we'll probably have to run this back once you get a feel for some of these guys that have years of eligibility left but could be NFL draft prospects. When they make their decision, we'll have a better feel of some of the holes that Tennessee will want to plug in the transfer portal. But as of right now, I think you're trying to address the pass catch room. Going back, you got big Nico coming in. You want to surround Nico with weapons. He's a guy that could really maximize this Tennessee offense, and you want to make sure he has the assets to do so. So going after some wide receivers, some playmakers in that pass catcher room would make a lot of sense, and maybe sprinkling in some more veteran guys across this roster. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.